Hanging.
There we go. Now we're up.
Pawning.
Now we're up. All right. Putting logo up to start the recording process. Hey, everybody. I am not a plain black screen. I am going to move myself there. There we go. I'm Paul Lathrop. I am the founder of the Polite Society podcast and one of the owners of the Self-Defense Radio Network. This is the Polite Society News Podcast for November the 26th, 2023. Before we get to our guests, I want to say I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving and that your food coma is over. Joining me today, first up, Rob Morse. Rob, of course, Self-Defense Gun Stories. Rob has been with me on Polite Society podcast for, 70, 80 years, something like that, Rob?
Yeah, I was young when we started.
Yeah, exactly. Up next, a much younger man, Tony Simon, who looks like he is frozen. Tony is diversityshoot.com. And Tony is frozen. Tony's showing me a red, now disconnected call on my broadcast software. Also joining in, Amanda Suffecool. Amanda just got off the air on Eye on the Target Radio, said she'd be willing to hang out in the studio for another hour to talk to us tonight. Everybody, thanks for coming in today. Tony is trying to reconnect. There he goes. All right. Let's go ahead and get set. And I left the age with Rob because Tony obviously is a much younger man, and you never ever discuss age with a female of any age. So
I was like, don't say it. Just don't say it.
Stop now. It's safe. Louisville, right. Yeah.
And we're already getting check-ins coming on social media, so I know we're going out there. Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. First story up. This past spring, there was a mass murder, even fitting the classical term of mass murder, at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky, and it turns out from a story, a John Lott story from Crime Research, the guy had a manifesto, and reading the manifesto, he was actually hoping that when he goes against upper-class white people, that his actions that day would spur on and trigger more gun control, triggering gun control. Yeah, I know, bad turn of phrase, but I'm going to start reverse order. Amanda, that this doesn't shock me that the guy was ultimately left and wanted to kill our gun rights. Doesn't shock me at all. Does it shock you?
No, but the logic associated with too many people are being killed, his interpretation, too many people are being killed by firearms, thus I must go and kill people with firearms to justify and show that people are being killed with firearms. It's such convoluted circular logic that and has no heart. If you are, I respect people. I think they're wrong, but I respect people who have a different viewpoint on firearms and are willing to argue the point, fight for the point, march and write and converse about it. But those who are willing to take other people's lives to make a stand, to make a point, you lose whatever credibility you may have ever had, and that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Tony, your thoughts, man? The bad guy really was a bad guy, but it was on the wrong side of the political fence too. Any shock to you?
There's no shock there whatsoever. Tom Grisham calls it chumming for sharks when the disingenuous anti-gun agenda gets out there and they start spouting this nonsense. It's like, no, we all know gun violence is very rare. Mass shootings are very rare. And it doesn't have to do with who gets killed. It's just a rarity. And also, they want to violate the Second Amendment and take away our civil rights, and they're losing in court. So it had nothing to do with who dies. It's just the emotional blackmail they're going to use or can use against us that would get stuff pushed through, but that stuff has already been deemed unconstitutional. So they'll have to change a lot of laws before they can change it. This guy was a whack job that murdered people. Pretty much your manifesto proves you're just an idiot that was polluted thinking, that had polluted thinking.
Absolutely. Rob, you've got already got comments up in show notes. What's your thoughts?
I agree with my co-hosts here. Logic isn't really a factor here. Why does a depressed lefty who hates capitalism work in a bank? I don't have that figured. But once you're a left-wing narcissist, any excuse to murder your opponents is fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me get a comment in here. Woods has already checked in, and he chimed in here and said, "You cannot reason with crazy." Yeah, well, no matter how. And we also got a little bit of a look at the Nashville, Tennessee school shooters manifesto, and there's no clear thought in there either. If you're trying to look for reason in these people, if you're trying to look for, and what the media is desperately trying to look for is connections to Donald Trump and connections to the conservative right wing of the Republican Party, they're never, ever, ever going to find it.
Well, the interesting part in that case was that the news went almost radio silent about the Nashville murders because once you started to look into the manifesto, it was racist. I mean, they were specifically picking out blonde-haired Christians for murder. I mean, that was who they were going after because of the way they talked, the way they dressed, what they believed, and so everybody, when that came out, if that would have come out in any other verbiage, it would have been 24-hour news cycle for weeks. As it was, it just went, there was more news about who leaked it and the 7 officers who were suspended than there was about the content of it.
Yeah, the content I have never seen outside of gun rights media. I've never seen it, period.
Right.
Nothing can go against the narrative. The narrative is the most important thing. And if it doesn't fit it, ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Next story. This is kind of I found this earlier in the week, and I grabbed some screenshots so I could put them up. This is kind of a little bit of a brag on me, on my state, but Freedom in the 50 States came out. Cato Institute does this every year. I'm going to go ahead and put the overall freedom rankings up on the screen. South Dakota, number 3. Number 1, New Hampshire. Some other really good states. Florida's number 2. Arizona, number 5. Nevada, number 4. And New York, dead last at 50. Let me see if I can find New Jersey for you, Tony. That is 47.
Oh.
Ohio, where Amanda is 21. Louisiana, where Rob is 31.
31.
Now, they've also got a listing for just specifically gun rights. Believe it or not, New York nor New Jersey are the dead last. And going to the gun rights rankings, New York 42. Massachusetts, where our friend Charlie Cook is 47. Connecticut, 49. New Jersey, 48. Delaware, 46. Hawaii is the absolute bottom of the list at 50. South Dakota only ranks 13th in firearms freedom. Kansas, number 1. And New Hampshire, number 2. And 3 states tie for number 3. Idaho, Utah, and Arizona. So, if you're looking for freedom, get away from the coasts, I guess is the
Salt water erodes freedom.
Yes.
That's how that works.
That's absolutely how it works. And Florida, I'm just looking back at it. I'm going to pop it back up again. Florida for gun rights is only number what? 38.
38, I think that is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very small, but
Right.
I do believe it's 38. So, yeah. So much for
I
being
wonder
the
if
gunshine
this
state.
I wonder if this includes before or after they pass constitutional carry.
I think
Yeah.
it's got to be before. And then all of this in the freedoms is definitely before Louisiana just did an absolute red sweep clear through their house. Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, but they're not in office yet. What have they done? So I don't want to
They've
have to
done
make this chart.
nothing yet,
That's
but
nasty,
that's
right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll run out of excuses next week or next year. Sorry.
Maybe.
All right. Amanda, I know because I watched all of your show this week. I heard every word of it, as I do most weeks. Open secret, I do video production for Amanda. When her show goes out on video, I'm the guy behind the scenes pushing the buttons. But this story was really prominent in hour 2 of your show today. San Antonio police attempt to remove private buyers at city-sponsored gun, I'm going to use Charlie's air quotes here, buyback event. Mm-hmm. You can't buy back something you never owned. So it's not a buyback.
With money that's not even yours.
Yeah.
That's the second part of that.
It's a compensated confiscation event is what it is. Long and short of the story, they kicked out the people that were trying to buy guns from the people going to the buyback. They kicked them out of the Alamo Dome's parking lot and they went out onto the sidewalk. I want to say lieutenant, but he was higher than that. A captain. Mm-hmm. With the San Antonio Police Department comes up and says, "Look, you can't be here." And C.J. Gresham says, I kind of know the law. I've looked up everything here, and this is public property. You cannot kick me off public property. He was right, and he got the police captain to back down, which is saying something.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty interesting watching the back and forth on that conversation because Dean Weingarten actually listed it. He said back and forth, so you could get a feeling for the entire conversation, and how C.J. Gresham laid it out specifically to say, here's a telephone pole, who owns it? Here is the sewer system. Who do you call if something's broken? Right? To the point where the officer had no choice. As much as it sounded as if he didn't want to go along to get along, he didn't have a choice. Rob?
Yes, I'm going to argue with you, Amanda. The officer did have a choice, and we've seen officers who will break the law and say, it's all right, my city has a lawyer, my union pays my legal bills, I'm going to cite you, you get to pay with your money. So they're basically punishing us. The prosecution is the punishment. This didn't happen this time. I'm not sure why. Remember, this is Austin, Texas. This is San Antonio. Okay,
but I too, no, not necessarily. I too sort of wondered why in the why to begin with, because when he shows up and he starts talking, he talks like he's got 100-pound badge, not just a regular badge like a regular officer, but one of those big heavy duty badges. See my badge? See how big my badge is? It goes along with everything else that's really big on me that I'm going to show you in a minute, right? I mean, it's that kind of that kind of thing, and but he did back down. But the interesting part is that when you look at these gun buyback programs, and we'll use their words, they accomplish what they're hoping to accomplish. They don't get it, because if gun people stand there and buy things in advance, those guns are going to good homes. They're going to good people. They're going to, I mean, frankly, if a town were smart, they would contact every FFL that was in the perimeter and say, we're going to do this, come and shop the line. Because then every gun goes into an FFL, goes through the background check, goes into the system completely legally in the way in which they insist that every transfer should happen, and they could make their money go ever so much further.
I want to get a comment in here quick. Warsaw Patriot says, the way I see gun buybacks are useless and total BS. When does a criminal turn in a firearm voluntarily? It's only a scam politically, and the state to say, F, you're right, give a gift card, have a nice day.
I got a point on that.
Go, Amanda.
The point on that is criminals do voluntarily turn them in because it's no questions asked. How is the easiest way to scrub that gun and to scrub you from it to where it can never be connected back to you, except to hand it to an officer who has promised that they're not going to look, and you don't say who you are and you walk away? It's scrubbed. Tony?
Yeah, I find that the funniest part. Yeah, no questions asked gun buyback. So why don't you just call it help get rid of evidence? Operation get rid of evidence. Go. It's the dumbest thing ever. It doesn't work. They've admitted it doesn't work. I think even the chief of police in Austin said it doesn't work because they spent over $100,000 doing this. And they didn't even get all the firearms. They left people still outside with those scary guns that were still on the streets.
You know, if I had time and I had, $1,000 or so, I would love to go down to one of these things and just say that, well, you see that I see a really nice 45 you're bringing in. They're going to give you $50. I'll give you 100 and walk away with 10 really nice firearms.
What's the purpose behind the purpose? The purpose has nothing to do with violence in our communities. The politics. The politicians want to issue a press release that said, see, when my city fails, you can't blame me because I had a gun buyback.
I think they proved that with the Sammy Davis Jr. gun. I absolutely. California had, in a gun buyback, they had Sammy Davis Jr.'s 45. And I don't know if you guys really know that in Hollywood, the best gun handlers was Jerry Lewis and Sammy Davis Jr. They did all of their own stunts. They did all of their own movie stuff. They did all their own gun handling, and they were phenomenal shots. So they had Sammy Davis Jr.'s 45 with the provenance, and they destroyed it. Multiple museums contacted them to buy it, and they said it had no value, that the gun was worth less than $300. And it was crazy. I talked to the curator of the NRA Museum, and they said that they went to make an offer, and there was not a dollar value that they could set high enough to make them even reconsider, because it wasn't their money, and it wasn't the people who made the decisions are making decisions solely on emotion and optics.
And California has been guilty of that before. This has been several years ago. It was shortly after I started what was then the Politics and Guns podcast. It was, I believe, the first show that John Richardson came aboard with us that we discussed this. They had a war bringback Sturmgewehr 44 full auto that was turned in, worth tens of thousands of dollars, and it was just destroyed.
But if it didn't have the paperwork to make it a legal, registered, tax-stamped gun, then it wasn't worth thousands of dollars. It could have been worth that in pieces. but the government would not allow that one to exist as an intact firearm.
Well, that's a good thing because we all know the number one caliber used in drive-bys is 8 millimeter Kurtz. So, I mean, that's just out there on the streets for anybody to get their hand up. Full auto 8 millimeter Kurtz, buy it all over the place.
Tony's
absolutely not.
Looking at me so happy with himself. It's a joy to be on the show with you guys.
His internet's giving him some grief.
Get to this one from Warsaw Patriot. The only thing I'd give to the state for a crappy gift card is a broken airsoft gun and maybe even a broken replica from some Spain made of pot metal you can buy online. Yeah, and Rob, I remember you and I talking about this. This was in Texas though. A guy got a bunch of 3D printers together, printed up a whole lot of AR receivers, took them down to the buyback event, cost him $1 or $2 to make them, and he got multiple thousands of dollars for those things.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was Austin who said, "Yeah, we're not going to buy homemade guns." Wait a minute. You've told us that homemade guns, no serial numbers, worst kind of gun, very, very dangerous. Have to get them off the street, and we won't pay anything for them because you can make them for a couple of bucks.
Because you can make them. So this would be the ghost guns, the nasty, nasty ghost guns.
Yeah. All right.
Optics. It's all optics.
Optics.
I want to get to our next story here quick, if I could, guys. An elderly federal judge in Colorado said there's no right to purchase a firearm. In this case, it was asked if the Colorado's mandatory 3-day waiting period was constitutional. Court began its analysis by acknowledging the Second Amendment right articulated by the U.S. Supreme Court in the 2000 case of D.C. versus Heller, said that we have an individual right to possess and carry weapons in case of confrontation, but purchase and delivery are only one means of creating the opportunity to have weapons. Basically, this judge and a Carter appointee, and I didn't think there were any left, but this judge said, look, the right to keep and bear does not mean the right to buy firearms. This has already been appealed. I'm surprised it hasn't been taken up by Colorado is the 10th Circuit. I'm surprised it hasn't been taken up by the 10th Circuit and shot back down already.
Right. So the judge is wrong.
Yes.
The
correct.
The test isn't, is there an alternative? The test is, does the law infringe? Does it contact the Second Amendment? And then the burden shifts to the federal government. And the federal government failed if you actually apply the law correctly. So this should get bounced. This was a horrible ruling. Well, what are you going to say to a guy who's been on the judge's chambers for 57 years, I think, by my count? But let's mock him a little more. Basically, he's saying, oh, yes, the First Amendment, freedom of association, right to express religion. Yeah, no right to purchase Bibles. By the way, no right that your church could ever be zoned. You could maybe have friends over to your house, but not too many. No right to operate a newspaper. That isn't included in free speech. Show me where it says.
Well, the freedom of the press might cover that, but according to this judge, you might have to go through a licensing to become a member of the press.
Well, how about we send them a 3D printer and they just print their own guns? Oh wait, we just talked about that, right?
Well,
maybe print them.
This judge is a role model to all the law school students that's going to finish in the bottom 10% of their class. There is hope. You can become a federal judge one day if you play your cards right and make really horrible, uneducated decisions from the bench. You don't have to graduate in the top of the class. Dummies can be judges too. There's hope for you.
There is.
See, I went back and did some math, and I looked at it. So Jimmy Carter finished being president in 1981. And this judge cannot be a judge after he's 70 years old, right? There's judicial rules. So he had to have been appointed by Jimmy Carter, who Jimmy Carter is ever so grateful for Joe Biden because he's now not the worst president in the United States. But he had to have appointed this judge before the judge was 28 years old. So he went through law school, became a judge. Like, look how proud his mama was of him because he was still wet behind the ears and he's had nothing else, no other life experience besides being a judge.
And it's sadly true.
It's at 20. Well, let's see. You can graduate. Law school is 4 years after you've graduated college, which for most people is 22. Becoming a lawyer at 26, appointed to a federal judgeship at 28. Holy smokes, that's meteoric. I bet he was sleeping with Rosalind Carter or something.
Or who did he donate money to? Right? Who did his parents donate money
Too bad
to?
he's
Parents.
too bad he's not sleeping with her now.
All right.
Too soon?
Boy, did that cause us on a left to go on a left turn. Rob,
Yes.
Rob,
Sure.
save us, man. Go to our next story, will you?
And Tony may or may not ever be invited back.
Oh, he will be.
I showed up
I've
especially
done
for
worse.
this moment. Recent gun owner ID laws were struck down in Maryland and Oregon, and that gives some hope to the poor people living behind enemy lines in Illinois. Across the country, we've seen different states' gun owners. The permit laws are fueling some hope amongst the gun right community in Illinois. I think if we're candid, the days are numbered for the state's firearms owner's ID card. We all know it as a FOID card. The Fourth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals Tuesday ruled that Maryland's permit to buy and own a handgun is unconstitutional. I'm going to quote a ruling from it. The challenged law restricts the ability of law-abiding adult citizens to possess handguns, and the state has not presented a historical analog that justifies its restrictions. Indeed, the state has seemingly admitted that it couldn't find one. Close quote. That's from the majority opinion in the Fourth Circuit. Maryland Governor Wes Moore said his administration is looking at all of our options and reviewing this ruling. In Illinois, gun right advocate Tom Vandermeed compared Maryland's law that requires fingerprints with Illinois' FOID card. Quoting Vandermeed, it's similar to a FOID card, but it's like the FOID card on steroids in certain ways, like we've seen the anti-gunners here in Illinois, the Illinois legislature, try to propose. That was Vandermeed speaking to Center Square.
I'm really hoping, and this also, the Oregon's permit to purchase rule has been struck down. Was also mentioned in this story later on in this story. Mm-hmm. I'm really hoping that this does bode well for Illinois. It's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen this week, this month, this year. But I'm really hoping that Illinois does get dragged kicking and screaming into somewhat freer America.
It doesn't really have a choice. I mean, it's going to go. Look at Oregon.
Why?
I mean, Oregon is not free America, and that Bill 114 was so egregious, and everybody said when they passed it, when the voters voted on it, everybody said well, everybody in our circle said it's not constitutional. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's unconstitutional. And they submitted it. They put it up for vote. They voted on it anyhow. And it took until now, but people used both the Constitution and the Bruin decision to prove it is not constitutional. So now you look at Maryland, and they're proving it's not constitutional. These hits for the anti-gunners are coming faster and faster and faster. You look at it, go back in time to 2008 when the decision on Heller. From 2000, we're not 20 years from Heller. And yet at the same time, we'd been losing our rights since 1934. So 1934 to 2008, we were losing. So 2008 came, then 2022 came with Bruin, and now you start to see, look at what's happening in California, look what's happening in Oregon, look what's happening in Maryland, look at the smackbacks that are just happening all over the place. We are winning, and the press is not sharing that we, the pro-2A people, are winning. Rob?
I'll let Tony go next because I want to bat last, maybe.
So this whole thing is a bunch of wins for us. And because the mainstream press knows, the way to kill a story is just not talk about it. Sadly, a lot of firearms owners only pay attention to mainstream media. They don't follow Pro 2A news. They don't follow Pro 2A podcasts. So they don't understand that we're winning. Sadly, many gun owners fall into that category of believing what the mainstream media says. And we, as advocates, get a lot of pushback from them going, what has fill-in group name ever done for us? We never have any wins. Man, we've been winning and winning, and they know they're losing. They put forth bills. Personally, I hope they keep doing this, and it gets pushed to the Supreme Court. I hope they fight back on it, and FOI cards, firearms ID cards, get banned across the country and get ruled unconstitutional on Supreme Court level. That way, that's one less fight we have in New Jersey, which we are fighting with lawsuits here too. But hopefully somebody carries this ball and just strikes it down nationwide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Rob, go.
Okay, and this is the part that bothers me. I'm going to use California as an example, and I think we're going to see this happen in Maryland and Illinois. The Ninth Circuit looked at a assault weapons ban. I believe a 3-judge panel ruled on it and said, assault weapons ban is fine. The Supreme Court granted an examination. They vacated the ruling and they remanded it back to the court saying, you got it wrong, go fix it. That 3-judge panel then sent it down to Judge Benitez, who ruled the same way he had pre-Bruin. And the 3-judge panel then rules the same way they had and overturns Benitez. So basically, they stuck their finger in the air to the U.S. Supreme Court and said, yeah, you told us to vacate it. We affirmed it. What are you going to do about it? I suspect
they're going to do something about it.
Monday.
Are they?
Tomorrow.
Clarence Thomas is sitting there going, don't make me stop this car. If I pull it over, I'm going to reach into the back seat and I'm going to smack you guys in next week.
I want to see that. But we have to see it in the
waiting for now. Yeah.
Right. And Clarence has got to wield a pretty big stick with the second, with the third, with the fourth, with the seventh.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope he's got enough sticks.
All right.
I haven't seen him yet, Amanda. I want to see him. I pray you're right.
I do.
I need to get this comment up because it's just too good. The opinions of the guests may not reflect the opinions of the sponsors. That going back to the Carter comments. Thankfully, right now, the show does not have any sponsors. So, no, you can't go call Glock and say, hey, look what they're doing on this show you sponsored. You can't do that because nobody sponsors this. This is coming out of my pocket.
Susan sponsors this.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Let me see here.
We're 5 over, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing all right. When it comes to assault weapons ban, how do you think gun owners feel the oppressed and scared from being prosecuted mostly to another state to prevent getting arrested and prosecuted?
Right.
You know, Rob, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember a very specific comment when I was doing a live show back when I used to break the studio down and go to a local Army Navy surplus store here.
Yeah.
And we were talking one day, and a comment came across back when we were doing Google Plus Hangouts. That goes back a ways. The guy was from New York, and you and I were talking and saying, I don't know why a lot of people just don't move, because there are a lot freer states than New York. This guy commented, look, I was 101st Airborne. I'm not used to running away. I don't think I'll start now. I loved that comment. I love that sentiment. You know what? I'm a fighter. I'm going to stay here and fight, and I'm going to win. We have a lot of people from New York State Rifle and Pistol Association that did that gave us the Bruin decision. And if we didn't have those people, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Correct. When I was in Massachusetts speaking recently to the egregious bills that they've got facing them, I tied it to a Jennifer Nettles song, Sugarland, of Why Don't You Stay? And I used pretty much every one of the refrain lines in there about the fact that, I can't take another minute of it, all of this. And it really is, we need those folks to stay. We need them to fight and not walk away, because wherever that erosion is happening, it will follow them, and it will just take over more and more, except for wherever the battle lines are drawn. And so we want to provide the support for those who are living at the face of the battle.
Absolutely. And
so Tony, what can we do for you?
Well, I hear this a lot because I'm in New Jersey. I've been doing the Second is for Everyone diversity shoots. I've been in advocacy since 2012. You hear it a lot on social media, move. And I'm like, a couple of things. One, really, just my wife should walk away from her family because of the firearms issue. There could be, hey, listen, I totally understand where you get from, where you can get it. I have friends that moved out of state. They were like, you know what? It's not worth it. I got you. Who do you think fights the fights? Who do you think? There is no great hero of a retreat. There's no great military hero that we all praise that had an awesome retreat. You attack, you fight back, you dig in.
I'm going to go a little bit sideways on your analogy there. There are some absolutely positively brilliant retreats where you find contact with the enemy, let them think they're winning, you retreat into an ambush for the enemy.
Again, that's not really retreat. That is a term
is tactics.
I learned from Tom Grisham. That's strategery.
Strategery, huh?
Oh, okay.
That's tactics.
Let's go there for a minute. Okay, so a bunch of people stayed in New York and lost politically. Where are they going to form a majority in a state that will elect the judges that will overturn the bad laws? So
you've got to push it clear to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You got to fight. You got to fight where you are. And if you can't, I totally understand people going, you know what? I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And it does get frustrating living in a state like this. We knew what was happening when the Bruin decision came out. We knew we were going to get the right to carry, and we knew they were going to mess with it continually. They changed the right to carry requirements, our concealed carry requirements, I think 3 or 4 times in 6 months. You would do what they asked, and they'd move the bar again, and they'd move the bar again, and they told you had to renew each time. So someone who got finally, after spending a couple of $100, getting a class, booking a class, taking a class, buying the gun, doing all the work, getting the holster, and you got your concealed carry October 1st, they told you needed to get it renewed and take another test before the end of December. It was supposed to be a 2-year permit, but they changed their mind again. So we're going to fight. We're going to keep fighting. There's never going to be an overall win. We're not going to go back to 1933 and they're going to just throw their hands up and say, well, we won't want to do this again. We'll move on to something else. So there's always going to be a fight regardless of where you move. That doesn't change anything.
We got a great comment that I want to get up. MK says, much easier to vote than to move. I would agree with that. And that kind of dovetails into a story we had. I'm going out of order, everybody. I want to go to this story next. Record share of Americans own gun as some states loosen firearms laws. As multiple states, including Florida, have expanded gun rights, a new NBC News poll found a record amount of Americans own firearms. Now, according to NBC, who's not exactly a bastion of conservative thought, their poll found that 52% said they or somebody in their household own a firearm. Compared to other years' poll results, the latest number is a record high level of gun ownership. Who owns these guns? Republicans had the highest share in November 2023, with 66% answering affirmatively, along with 45% of independents and 41% of Democrats. The 2023 number is also the year with the highest share of Republicans and Democrats responding affirmatively. Independents had slightly higher share in February 2013 and August 2019. NBC that added that by race, while white gun ownership rates used to be much higher than the black rate, the gap is now closing. And in August 2019, the same poll found 53% of white voters and 24% of black voters responding affirmatively. In the new poll, the result was 56% of white voters and 41% of black voters. That was from FloridaVoiceNews.com. Guys, this is, look, polls can say anything the poll makers want them to. I don't think NBC wanted this poll to come out as heavily in favor of ownership as it did. And yet they still reported on it.
Right. And if you dig into the poll, one of the fascinating questions was, do you think a gun is necessary to be safe? And 66% of us said, oh, yeah.
Yeah. In other words, we're reaching 66% of the population with this podcast and 41% of Democrats. By the way, if you're listening and you're a Democrat, you need to change your party. Your party is actively working to disarm you.
Well, okay, so I went and dug into those polls, Paul. They were interesting. And what they did for us is they said, here's how Republicans voted, here's how Democrats voted, here's how Republican gun owners voted and Democrat gun owners. Okay, now you see what it means to, quote, be a gun owner. For a lot of gun owners, because of historic stereotype, they think that a new gun owner is going to vote like them. Turns out that Democrat gun owners vote much more like Democrats than they do like Republican gun owners. So what that means is they're willing to ignore the Democrat Party's attack on the Second Amendment for all the other issues that come with being a Democrat. And they go, oh, yeah, that's just a price I have to pay.
See, we are primarily one issue type voters.
Yeah.
They are one issue voters, and guns are probably not the issue. And so you have to realize for everybody that we are Second Amendment advocates, and that was part of our journey, but not everybody that owns a gun is. And
they asked what the most important issues in the upcoming election would be, I think we were number 5.
Yeah.
But it was the economy, immigration, crime, and then I think guns were down in there.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I'd like to. Sorry, Paul, I don't mean to take over your show, but
go, yes.
Crime. So I think that what you're going to start to see is that if they can't go after the guns, and Bruin is saying they can't go after the guns, they're going to have to do something, because the story has been that the guns are bad and people aren't. Guns are bad and people aren't evil. The gun is the criminal and the people are not. And we know that that's not the case. And so what they're finding is that if they can't go after the gun, they're going to have to go after criminal reform. And you're seeing the population say, we need something done with the criminals. And I think that if you say that there's a change in the wind, that's the change. And we're going to see more and more of that. So kind of watch this space. But give me your opinions on that.
I want to jump in real quick, and I want to say this is not necessarily against what I see as what a Democrat would do, simply because the Democrats are quite often, I got mine, to heck with anybody that doesn't have theirs yet. I
think that there's other issues that are more important to them. And so you're looking at it as a two-way advocate first and foremost, and going, okay, everybody else has got to be black or white, yes or no, on or off. And it's not that case. This is kind of like owning a car to them, or owning a mixer or a chainsaw. It's a tool. For us, it's like owning a vehicle. I mean, it's the center of whatever we're doing. So don't get the two mixed, because I think that they're completely different. Tony?
Yeah, Tony.
This is 100% what I found out hosting the diversity shoots over the last 8 years. We are Second Amendment advocates. We are in the firearms lifestyle. We are in the self-defense and self-sufficiency lifestyle. That's great. But if you own a chainsaw, you're not in the Husqvarna lifestyle. You know what I mean? You're not going around going, what's new, and checking out those catalogs. That's what's going on with the Second Amendment, and that's what I found. The gun owners, because I'm in New Jersey, I host my event and I welcome all people. So I have a lot of Democrats, a lot of minorities that have voted Democrat their whole life, a lot of whites, blacks, whatever you want to call the background. Jersey's a blue state. And I have many, many Democrats come through, and the Second Amendment is not a priority. That is why it's important, I feel, for us to speak to people that aren't under our tent and bring them in and go, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. You have other priorities. But understand this. Once we lose the Second Amendment, once we don't have the ability as a people to resist a tyrannical government, many of the things you think are important can get shuffled way down on a priority list for that government, and there's nothing you can do about it to bring it back. So when you said Donald Trump is literally Hitler for 4 years, you didn't really think about the thing that stops someone from being the new Hitler is the Second Amendment. So you're really going to have to change your party from within. You're going to have to find pro-2A Democrats, which there are some. You're going to have to vote for them. If you want to maintain your rights and the ability to own that thing, you're going to have to elect people that fight for that thing. And don't expect that the deep blue areas of states like New Jersey are suddenly going to go red. There are pro-2A Democrats. They just have to be elected, and it has to be given priority. And the time to do it is now, between active shootings, when you can talk to these people and they're not being bombarded by the mom's demand, and they're not having the emotional blackmail cast upon them. This is when we're going to have to do it. You're going to have to make them understand. And it's off-season elections. It's not during the presidential elections. It's the other ones when you can replace them because they don't have that much money in it. And it's going to have to be your friends that are pro 2A. You're going to have Democrats like that are Rebecca Schmoys. You're going to have people like that run.
I'm gonna, Tony. Let me put some joy in your heart. New Jersey voted to elect Ronald Reagan twice. New Jersey is not as deep blue as a lot of people think it is. New Jersey could turn red in the future. Do I think it's highly likely? Yeah, I wouldn't bet my entire paycheck on it, but it has happened in the past, it can happen now, and it will happen in the future. All they need is either a bad enough president, like somebody that's worse than Carter at the time, and they've got that, to go another direction.
Understand the migratory pattern of the failed Democratic cities. It's through Jersey, out of New York and through Jersey, and they settle here for a little bit before they move on to run Florida and Texas. So that's what we have to fight against.
We're talking about those polls, and I want to go back to them since I read them. Except for Democrats, a majority of us, more than 50% of everyone, blame woke Democrat politicians and district attorneys for the rising rate of crime. Most of us think that the U.S. Justice Department is focused on politics rather than stopping drug gangs and large criminal syndicates. Most Republicans think that the police are afraid to do their job. Democrats disagree. Democrats think the increase in crime is because of a worsening economy. Republicans think it's because criminals weren't being prosecuted.
Yeah, and we could bat this around all night long. I don't think there is an answer here other than try and create more Second Amendment advocates. And if you can't, at least create Second Amendment agnostics. Take people to the range with you when you go shooting.
There you go. Take them as far as you can.
Exactly. And I say this all the time. I've said it numerous times when I spoke at Gun Rights Policy Conference. The way we create people to come to our side, first of all, you've got to be friendly. You've got to, in your personal life, make new friends and make friends that don't agree with you on everything so you can bring them along. It means you've got to be a good person. You've got to be polite. You've got to be likable. And that's how we're going to get people to come to our side. Is when they say, look, Amanda, she's not quite as nuts as I thought she was. And I met Amanda. She's an okay person. If she believes in this, it must not be too bad. So
now I think that was a
she's
stretch.
Crazy as yeah, I've met Amanda, and she is exactly as nuts as I thought she was.
All right. Well, we are getting down towards the time we got to start shutting this down. Rob, I'm gonna start first with you, dude. I see you got a story down here from your blog. Go ahead and plug that, and anything else you want to plug today, man.
Well, I'm going to blame this article on you, Paul. We talked about the seeds of it on Wednesday when I was on the Light Society News. It's called "Where Did New Gun Owners Come From and Where Are They Going?" I looked through 3-4 polls to try and answer that question. It's pretty clear our society is changing. Those changes caused a lot of us to buy a firearm. Those changes won't produce changes in the body politic, or if they do, they're just an incremental change. Said another way, yes, we had 30 million new gun owners since the last election. You can't count on 30 million new Republicans.
All right. Whoops, I got the wrong button there. There we go. Tony, Diversity Shoot, and when is the next one coming up, and anything else you want to plug, bud?
All right. Next Diversity Shoot is coming up Thursday, November 30th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Gun for Hire Range in Woodland Park. It's the last event of the year at Woodland Park. The one after that is the 4th at Recoil Range in Monroe, New Jersey. It will be the last diversity shoot of 2023, December 14th. I hope to see you there. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of items at these next two because what I'm doing is fundraising for the trip to SHOT Show already been. So that's what we're doing. Also, before this month is out, the 501c3 is going to be launched of the 2A4E. I've done some of the groundwork. I've got some of the officers. So finally, the overnight success that is 2A4E that's been going on for 8 years is finally going to become a charity organization, and you'll be able to donate to us and get the tax benefit from that. So thank you very much. Go to diversityshoot.com and follow me on social media, Simon Says Train, on Facebook, Simon Says Train, on Instagram, and second for everyone on X.
All right. Amanda, we just wrapped up Eye on the Target Radio for this week, but is there anything you want to plug today?
Well, first I want to say how proud I am of Tony. We've talked about his not-for-profit for a while. So, man, Tony, you're like all grown up and everything. I'm so proud of you. So my show is on Sundays from 5 to 7 Eastern time. Eye on the Target Radio, so you can catch me there. And the one thing I want to say is I'm getting ready to head to Louisiana to do a training class. And then the following week, I'm taking one in Ohio. And I just want to urge each and every one of you who has a concealed carry or has a gun, get training. And I don't just mean get training. I try to go to 2 or 3 unique training classes every year to get a different vantage point and different training from different instructors. And I just urge each of you to do that so that if you only train with one guy, your flaws are his flaws. You want to be as good as the best of everyone that you can come in contact with. So I urge you, train and keep training.
And I'm going to add to that a little bit. If you go to multiple people for training, you get slices of their viewpoint. And I've been to a lot of Masada Ayoub's classes. I have absorbed a lot of Masada Ayoub's philosophy into my philosophy of firearms, but there's also a lot of Kathy Jackson in there. There's also some of other trainers I have taken training with. You don't want to go with just one. You want just like you don't want one education standpoint. You want a lot of different slices of education so that you can form your own opinions. You can make your own decisions, what is right for you. What Masada Ayoub teaches may not be exactly right for Jim in Ohio, might be not exactly right for Harvey in California, but what is taught up at the Firearms Academy Seattle by Bell McCormick might be. So get a lot of viewpoints. So
can I throw something else in there too?
Yes, absolutely.
Look, a lot of us travel the country and go to training, and it's awesome, but you don't have to. You can go to a local trainer and get many of the same things you can get from the people that are more famous on the national level. A lot of that is personalities, also maybe experience, but fundamentals and tactics and different things can be taught within a half an hour to an hour of your home. You don't have to worry about the hotel, the flight, all of that. Just purchase the amount of ammo you need for the class, and you can take classes within driving distance of your home. Everything doesn't have to be go see a travel instructor, or you wait for somebody that comes around and charges big money. Look, get to that level if you want to get to that level. If you want to pay $700,000 to $800,000 weekend trainers that are famous, cool, do that. But understand, there are local trainers out there that can teach you too, that you don't have to take out a small business loan to actually go visit them and shoot with them.
No, I agree with that, Tony. But I also say I talked to a guy at a cocktail party recently who kept saying, my trainer knows everything I ever want to know. And it's like, no, he doesn't. So if you say that there's 4 gun shops that are near you and you take training in each one of those 4 shops, then yeah, I 100%. But if you pick a guy and say this is your guy and he's the only person who's going to be allowed to train you, don't do it.
Yeah. We are
Don't
up
ever
at
do
the
that.
top.
No.
We're up at the top of the hour. We got to get out of here just for logistical purposes. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Come join us tomorrow night. Polite Society Podcast, 7 p.m. Central Time. Until then, everybody, see you